Yes guys, I'm back with another one, and today we're just gonna have a little look BTC. We'll take a look at the stock market. Might as well have a little look at that while we're at it. We're also gonna have a little look at USDT dominance, see what's going on with the dominance, see where we're at in this cycle. And me personally, I'm thinking that we're potentially we found a bottom in June at the minute, which we generally do. I'm gonna have a little look at that. Then we'll probably have a little bit of a rally into July, somewhat along them lines, and then eventually find that major bottom in around July, August, September, around back end of September, back end of October time. Before we do eventually start to move back up in the bull market, because I'm just going to have a little scan of where we are, like I say, in the market, the current market at the minute, the bear market. So yeah, let's get straight into it, guys. So I'm currently on the BTC chart. I'm on the weekly. Having a little look here. It is the perpetual contract chart. I can go into BTC USD. Can go into the spot chart and remove all these a minute. So, like I was pointing out, the levels in the perpetual contract, pretty similar levels, if I'm being honest with you. We've got the 200 exponential moving average here, flattening out, which is potentially a sign that we are gonna, I need to see what this is gonna do here. What this, exponential moving average is gonna do next. Because when it generally goes flat like this, we are going to be expecting some sort of move back down. If we have a look at prior cycles, so is it the 2022 cycle? If we have a look, the 2022 cycle around here, October time, we found the bottom November, October, before we had the initial bull run from here, October time, around October, November. And then we had the rally in BTC, which were an absolute monster rally in BTC. If we look, I'm just going to have a little look to see if we've got the actual data here. I don't think we have it, doesn't it? Don't go back to 2017. Let me have a look. There's bound to be one that's got one that's 2017. Yeah, here we go. Remove them. Yeah, remove them. So the 2017 rally, which was back here, we generally found the bottom in May, February, December, October, November time, before the initial rally, which was here. June, July, September, October. We had the 4,000% move from here to here. We dropped back in around November, December, had another slight rally in 2018, came back down. 2020, in around March, is where we started the initial rally. Around 30,000% move that was. It was a crazy move. But there's also one thing that we are doing a lot the rallies are getting shorter. June, July, August. You know, you're gonna get this sort of move. July, another 140 something percent. Excuse me. And if we have a look at these rallies when they're occurring, you know, the tops and the bottoms. Got another bottom here around August, September, October. We have the rally, 122%. And as you can see, these rallies are getting, you know, not as much percentage. We have the 30% dip into April. Excuse me. We have the push up from April all the way to October. And then from October, we've had this drop of around 53% coming back into July. So it wouldn't surprise me if we have some sort of rally back up into this zone and move back down the final bottom around these areas. And then we start to trickle up again and then hit them all-time highs again around May, June, July, August, around October. It seems like the moves are happening. You know, you've got October there, down into June, move back up, drop back down into October, sideways, and then a rally. This seems to be the theme of Bitcoin at the minute. Now you've got this high here that is potentially going to get broken. But, you know, it's just waiting and seeing what's going to be. I'm actively buying BTC on the way down. I am actively buying it. But what you've got to think is, you know, say we do get to these lows, take out these lows at 49, come back into this area here. I think I've got that marked out on my perp chart anyway. Come back into this area here. Have your little sideways action and then rally off. If we have a look, you know, the rallies are getting shorter and shorter. The percentages that you're going to be gaining are getting shorter and shorter. So, you know, you are best off having some Bitcoin in your bag. Needed a drink then. So we need to see that. You know, we need to see this, a little rally up into here around 75k and then a drop off. You know, just looking at market structure, if we have a look, you know, we're putting that high and then we're putting a lower high, another lower high. How we're going to be expecting this, another lower high, and then eventually down into these zones, start to switch back up, you know, and then we get something like this. You know, this is what generally happens with Bitcoin, you know, just going back on, you know, the past movements that we've actually had. It's somewhat pretty similar. You know, we were creating higher highs, higher lows. And then we go into a lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. And then we start to do the higher high, higher low, sideways. And then we do another higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, and then rally off. And it seems like we're just doing a full circle every single time in Bitcoin. And this is what it's doing every single time. You know, we're having these sort of moves, dips back down, back up, dips back down, back up. You know, you need to be prepared to buy in the market when people are fearful of the market. Me personally, I do not think we are going to, you know, we might get a wick, but we're not. I don't think we're coming back towards this area. Not one little bit. I really don't think we are. You know, it's Bitcoin's been adopted by all the big boys now. You know, at the minute they're just playing with people's emotions, and that's what's going to happen. Go back to that perps, just where my support and resistance areas are. You know, we've technically we have just tagged into that area what I marked out last week. This area here, we're in that zone. We are currently in that zone. Volume profile, you know, there's a high percentage of volume here. Below us, there isn't much. But the only thing that, you know, is bothering me is this point of control at around 66, 67K is lower at the minute. And I normally do it on the daily, but I'm doing it on the weekly. So, you know, this whole area, which is nearly a year's worth of area, that point of control could become very significant, which, you know, if we're not reclaiming this point of control here, and we do come up into here, spike up, and drop back below that, then yeah, that's the area I'm going to be looking at. I am actively starting to slowly build my bag now in BTC around here. There's only one other thing that's worrying me, and it's this area here. That there is an untested point of control at around 27,000. And I'm not saying it is going to go back there, because if we have a look at the initial drop here, it never came back to 9K. It attempted to, you know, from that high. It missed that there by around 40%. So if we're just doing, you know, I'm just literally looking at charts to see where it could potentially be going. You know, if we're having a look at that there's potentially around 40%. So I'm hoping that we can get some sort of support, have a little rally here up into these areas, and then continue to start buying my bags in this zone here. You know, this is going to be a big zone for me. And then, you know, getting the initial move all the way back up to new all-time highs. Which, like I say, the rallies getting, percentage-wise, the rallies are getting a bit weaker. I know people are saying, you know, Bitcoin's going to go to 1 million, this and that, blah, blah, blah. So if Bitcoin does go to 1 million, where we are currently, which I don't think we will go to 1 million from here, you know, that's 1 point, well, it's 1,400% in it, 1,500%, somewhat along them lines. Even if we come back down to this area that I'm looking at, where we are currently, around, you know, your 40s, your 38 potentially, and we rally, you know, you're looking at potentially 2,500% rally. But that there is going to be a long-term play. You're going to be looking at around 10 years for that. Before that, any sort of move like that can occur. So I don't know whether at the minute the big boys are hunting potentially Sailor's liquidation price, which is a bit unfair on Sailor, but you know, that's what happens when you're a bit of a degen and you're buying in no man's land like he has been doing here. It's a bit silly what he's doing. So let's go over to USDT dominance. Let me get where's the volume profile here? I'm gonna have to, I think, move that up a little bit. No, move it down a little bit. We'll go to 100. Yep, 100. So if we're having a little look at USDT dominance on the weekly, it's had a rally and it's come up above that. That's the fib retracement level. Not really relevant on here, but I'm just trying to have a look at where it could potentially be going if BTC does drop down. And if we can hold here in USDT dominance and we get another 33%, potentially Bitcoin is going to drop down to them lower prices into around your 40s if USDT dominance holds here. And then as that final spike up into them zones, we drop, we spike, and then boom, big drop down to these lows. That's when you're going to see that major move from BTC. Bitcoin dominance on the weekly at the minute, still, it's just sideways dominance. And my theory on dominance is really, it's not that much relevant anymore. Me personally, I don't think it is, but we will see. S&P 500. Let's have a look at it. That candle there, is a bit concerning at the high. A bit of an engulfer, bit of an engulfing one here. And I'm not saying the S&P 500 can't go any further up, because it can, because at the minute it just seems like the markets are decoupled from everything that's going on in the world at the minute. You've got the war with Israel and Iran, which is making no sense to me whatsoever. How that war's going on, and these stocks, the S&P 500 is continuously just rallying. It's rather baffling for some investors. It's baffling for me as an investor, and I'm just thinking, how is that still moving up when you've got a war going on? You've even got oil at the minute just going sideways, which is not really something that you really want to see. These are meant to be the opposite to each other, and they're not. It's like the dollar index at the minute. The dollar index has started to go up. Is the dollar index gonna potentially break that 200 EMA and then come up to around these 110 mark? We're gonna have to see, but me personally, I think that rate hikes are going to be coming in. The stats are telling you everything that you need to know. That the economy is not healthy. They keep saying that it is, but me, I don't think it is that healthy, if I'm being honest with you. I really don't think it is. I just think the orange man just keeps coming out with a load of spiel, and everybody's just like, oh, well, if he says it, it must be true. Well, only time will tell. Time will tell. GBTC is starting to fall below here now. And there's another pattern. What people keep going on about, I'm not really a pattern trader, but you've got your shoulder, your head, and your shoulder, and we all know what comes after that. Generally a move back down. I'm not saying it's going to go this low. I'm just saying that that's generally what occurs with a head and a shoulder pattern. If it were the opposite and it was the inverse head and shoulder pattern, then yeah, you're going to be expecting the rally up there. At the minute on the weekly, we're creating a big head and shoulder pattern on Bitcoin, which could potentially pull us back down to these lower regions. So that's a little bit food for thought for you. Think about it. I'm still going to be buying Bitcoin all the way down into these zones here. At the minute, we're only on Monday, so there's not really much you can be looking at to do with Bitcoin at the minute, apart from, just start stacking your bag. Stack some in here. Stack some in here. We go lower. Stack some in here. Just these are areas that you want to start to stack Bitcoin in. in my personal opinion. So if we do get another 40% drop, you know, just hold on and see what's going on. You know, it's pointless just being fearful of the market. If you're a long-term investor, overall, if we're looking at Bitcoin, overall, yes, it does have violent crashes, but from, 6,000, it's probably even lower. Have a little look. I think it's Bitstamp that's got the thingy. Originally looking at Bitcoin at $71 over the past, since September 2011, Bitcoin has done 50,000% since 2011. So you're looking at what, 14 years, 15 years, something like that, where Bitcoin's done 50,000%. So if you were lucky enough to get Bitcoin down here, I wasn't. I wish I were, but I wasn't. It's food for thought. If we do continuously keep rallying in Bitcoin and we do eventually hit that £1,000,000 mark, then, over the years, that's nearly an 18,000% in Bitcoin, which is not a bad return, really, if you think about it. Currently from the lows, that's 97,000% from them current lows there. If I've got it right now, I've got it at -130. It's hard to do with, obviously, because I've got to drag the chart in here, but you can see what I mean. That overall, it is going to continuously keep going up, even though we are having these violent crashes in Bitcoin. So if you are a crypto maxi and you do believe in this space, I'd start to accumulate now down here. But that's it from me today. I'm going to be putting out another video, not tomorrow, but I think Wednesday I'm going to put another video out. But feel free to drop something in the comment section. Let me know what you want me to look at, and I'll have a little look, and we can see what we can do together. See if we can see any altcoins that are ready to explode or anything like that. But personally, I've been through altcoins before, and they're not good. There's one coin in this market, really. If we just, before I go, have a look at Solana as your fine example. It can never hold above these areas. It will always, from 49 cents, it went up nearly 60,000%. You're going to take profit. A real investor's probably going to be going into, the S&P or the US 10 or, gold or silver, just because it's a physical asset. And, this had that initial rally from $17 up into here because they adopted meme coins. That is the reason why Solana went up so much. What is Solana really? This is what you've got to think. What are these projects? How many of these big projects stay with us? There's only one major project that has stayed with us, and that's Bitcoin. So, it's like Cardano, from its all-time high, it is down currently 94%. So unfortunately, these adder maxis have been wrecked. Even if you're an adder maxi, you're telling me when you've got a 14,000% gain, you're not going to be taking profit. Just the same with Bitcoin. You've had that massive profit from that low. You're telling me that you are not going to be taking any profit from here to here, which is 728%. Of course you are. you know, anybody in the right mind are gonna. So, you know, let's just hope that it gets adopted a little bit more, Bitcoin, and we can move on from there. So yeah, like I say, whip something down in comment section. Let me know what you want to look at. And that's going to be it from me, guys. And I will catch you in the next one. Happy trading.